It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hibb.
Most people are worried about becoming a burden on their families or not being able to afford nursing home care later on in life. Are you one of those families? We'll guide you along the way with solid Watts on Wealth wisdom and advice on our show for this weekend. I want you to listen closely to everything we hear from Barry Watts, the Maine retirement wealth designer from the Wealth Care Corporation. Hello and welcome back to the radio. You've been a world traveler, Barry, and how's life for you?
Life is always good when you're on the right side of the grass. Some days it's better than the other, but always remember you're on the right side of the grass. So I'm doing fine, Ralph. I'm feeling good and mostly recovered from my trip to Europe. And it's hard to adjust your body back to the right sleep schedule because right now it's 7 hours ahead of us. So they've already got 7 more hours accomplished. And then when you fly back home, what that means is you wake up at 2 a.m. over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And, that's a killer. But it was good. It was a good trip. We had a great time.
Well, I love to track where you are on Facebook. And it's, wow, Barry's home, because I saw you were in Dallas and then back at Springfield, Branson. And I saw those lines. The eagle has landed, and 'tis a privilege to live in the Ozarks. And I had a sigh of relief. I knew you were home. So tell us more about the trip. You went to Paris, first of all, and then to Rome.
Well, the purpose of all of these exotic places, Rome and Paris, Argentina, is to make you appreciate Rogersville, or more in me, Rogersville, because that's where I live. But I would say to make you appreciate the Ozarks, and I do appreciate the Ozarks. Now, Europe's wonderful. We love traveling to Europe. There are a lot of interesting things to see. And so anytime I have a business meeting that is overseas, I always take Kelly with me when I'm traveling that far from home. I've just reached the point where I'm not going without her. We just need to be together, want to be together. We enjoy each other. It's hard for me to come to work and just be gone from her for a few hours. I don't know if she shares that sentiment as much as I do. But I really love and enjoy being with her. So I always take Kelly with me, and we always try to make good use of the trip, the miles flown, because, the hard part is getting to Europe. Once you get to Europe, there are a lot of things to see over there. And so we try to see other things that are kind of close by. So this particular trip, the business meeting I had was in Rome, so we added Paris, and we did it not realizing the Olympics were going to be there. We actually planned this many, many months ago. And so then we suddenly realized, you're parachuting into the middle of the Olympics. That might not be the place you wanted to be. Fortunately, we were there right before the Olympics started. But in Paris, we did get to see the Eiffel Tower, and that's something special. We saw the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. And, I remember as a kid seeing that picture. I don't know why they taught us all about the Mona Lisa, why that was important art when we were kids growing up. But it was, and whoever dreamed that I, the little boy from Stone County, down in Galena, who went to school in Abbeville, would one day be in Paris staring at the Mona Lisa. But there
exactly, yeah.
And I always stop and think about that. I never fail to appreciate where I'm at, the fact that most people don't get the opportunity to see those things, and the fact that I've come a long, long, long way from milking cows in Stone County in the 1970s. But I'm grateful. Some things I learned while I was in Paris. By the way, the name of the river there is not the Seine. It's spelled Seine. And in the Ozarks, we'd call that Seine, like you were seining for menace. And there are only a few people who even know what I just said. Ralph, you may not even know what I said. Do you know what that means?
I have no idea, Barry, what that was.
When you're getting ready to go on a big fishing trip, you've got a net. And you take this net and you put it out across the river. And you sweep the net through the river, and you come up in the bottom of the net with a bunch of minnows in the bottom of the net. And then you use those minnows to bait your hooks, your trot lines, when you're trot lining the James River. So that's called seining the river. And so the river Seine, that's what it looks like. But actually in Paris, it's pronounced Seine, the river Seine. And that's where you've been seeing them do all the swimming contests that were outside are all in the River Seine. That's the one where the pollution has been so bad that maybe they weren't supposed to swim it. Saw some other interesting things while I was there. The catacombs of Paris are interesting. When I say catacombs, I'm talking about dead men's bones stacked up underground. Literally, you go down into these tunnels underneath the ground, and you see mostly femurs. That appears to be the bones they used, which is your thigh bone. They use those bones to kind of build the walls, and every once in a while, for decorative purposes, they put a row of skulls in, and then they throw all the other bones over behind that. So you're walking through this tunnel, and the walls of the tunnel are not the bones of a few dead men, but we're talking hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dead men. And so that's just weird. I got to tell you, that's just weird. But it's one of the things that they have over there that they tour you around. They explain why it happens, and it's kind of interesting. When I got to Rome, we got to see the tomb of the Apostle Paul. That's an interesting thing. We got to see the prison where Paul was imprisoned. We saw the Trevi Fountain. That's one of the most popular things to see when you're in Rome. This big fountain that has about 5,000 of your closest friends all gathered around the fountain at the same time. The Colosseum, you've seen pictures of it. We actually had a gladiator school at the Colosseum where they would teach you to be a gladiator. Now,
nice.
I didn't.
Yeah.
The young guys who happened to be at this meeting with us, they actually took gladiator lessons. I said, nah, thanks. I think I'll pass. We got a private tour of the Vatican and Sistine Chapel.
Yes.
And that was really special. Have you ever been there, Ralph?
Have never been to Rome or Italy, and it is sure on my bucket list. You know, if we have enough money to travel on our own, we have a trip with 30 people. We're going to Australia in October, which I'll remind you about later, but going to Australia, really looking forward to that in the fall. But just for our family to travel, Rome is definitely on our bucket list, and to see the Vatican, that'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Well, the thing about it, when you get to Rome and you're going to the Vatican and the Sistine Chapel in particular, is it is elbow to elbow. The Sistine Chapel is about the size of an old middle school gymnasium. You know, now our gymnasiums are kind of big and palatial, but back in your and my day, Ralph, we played in gyms that were built maybe in the 20s. And they were not very large. The Sistine Chapel isn't all that large, and they'll put like 1,000 people in it at a time, and you're just elbow to elbow. And by the way, there's really not any air conditioning in there. Well, we got a private tour of the Sistine Chapel, less than 100 of us in the chapel. It divided into groups of about 20 or 25. And so we got to see Michelangelo's art in a whole new way because we didn't have 1,000 other people elbowing us out of the way. So had a great trip. It was a lot of fun to get to go. And, you know, Ralph, one of the things that Kelly and I value is travel. One of the things we value more is coming back home because, again, the purpose of travel is to make you appreciate life in the Ozarks.
They're both wonderful.
Yeah. Well, they are wonderful. And we want to help our clients to the degree that they want to travel. We want to help them do that. And both by demonstrating for them that it can be done, coaching them on the great things to see when they go certain places, and also helping them build their finances so that they've got enough money to be able to travel and see some of the things that are on their bucket list.
Exactly. And one thing, I don't know if Barry might have been a little too modest to say this, and you can add to the story. Barry also went over there, friends. As much as he knows about financial planning, he did learn at seminars over there. It wasn't totally for pleasure. It was for business. Learning in Rome at the seminar how to make the Wealth Care Corporation even better. And Barry, were you able to share any lessons with us about that? And also, I'd love to ask you about those $10 Coca-Colas. Did you see any of those while you were there?
Well, you know, most of what we do in terms of training and education is stuff that would just bore you to death. Parts of it bore me to death, and my challenge is to stay awake long enough to get to the good part.
And I wondered where you could teach some of those classes over there.
I do teach those classes from time to time, but when I'm not sitting in them, when I'm not teaching them, I'm sitting in them and learning from them. And we have some business entities that we're involved in that do business in that part of the world, and so we're meeting as business owners and talking about our joint business in that particular part of the world. So, you know, I don't think the things that we talk about in those meetings are necessarily interesting to you, but what we do at the Wealth Care Corporation certainly is an amalgamation of 31 years worth of boring meetings, all put together to help us learn the things that we need to learn to be most effective for our clients. And frankly, after 31 years of that, we're pretty darn good at it, and we know quite a bit. Now, here's what we can't fix necessarily. We can't fix the $10 10-ounce Coke. Woo! That is really something.
Was that a shocker? Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is a shocker. And it's not everywhere, but there are certain areas that are the high touristy areas that when you sit down and say, I'd like a Diet Coke with a glass of ice, they bring you one ice cube. It's 95 degrees. You're sitting outside. They bring you one ice cube in a glass, and they bring you a can of Coke. And so first thing I had to do was say, no. I wanted American style, ice all the way to the top. And then about half the time they got it, and they then went overboard, and literally you couldn't have put another cube in the glass. But about half the time, then they gave you like 3 cubes instead of 1. So the shocker, though, was the cost. I paid $10 for an 11-ounce Coke, or Diet Coke, actually. And that kind of takes your breath away. So it was kind of the fun thing I tracked all across Europe is how much does a Diet Coke cost here? And I bought them as cheaply as $3.50 and as expensively as $11.
Yeah, there you go. And any comments from that, Barry, sizing up the French and Italian economies? Were you able to analyze their situation?
I don't think I got enough experience in it in depth enough to be able to speak to their economy. But I do want to say something about the French people. If you talk to people about going to France, what they will say is, "Oh, the French don't like Americans." I'm telling you, that's balderdash. We dealt with a few grumpy people in France, but the people that we dealt with in France were glad that we were there. They were kind to us. They worked to speak English with us. They don't speak as much English, by the way, in France as they do in Italy or certainly in other parts of the world. But you could get by. They spoke enough for you to be able to work it out for the most part. And you didn't have to go very far to find someone who could speak English. So I just want to debunk this myth that the French are ugly. That was just not our experience at all. They were very kind to us, and we met nice people in France, and we enjoyed meeting them very much.
Lovely. Well, they're really saying, bonjour to all the people from around the world who are in Paris right now for what's coming up to the ending of the Olympics. Barry, by the way, when you're up at 2 a.m. and you can't sleep, you could watch the Olympics. It's a few more days, and that would occupy your time. But
we actually are watching the Olympics. We did watch it all and watched it all to the finish. And it was a lot of fun. While we were in Paris, they were preparing. The Olympics hadn't quite happened yet, but they had all the streets already roped off and had policemen at every intersection. And so, the thing that I questioned is Paris is a city of 11 million people, and they were expecting 15 million visitors for the Olympics. And because they were having 15 million guests come to town, they then cordoned off all the streets.
Right. And I know I'd asked you if you
process that in my brain. Why
I'd asked you, I had some comments about whether you and Kelly were able to go to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. You could really see the whole city. You said they had that closed off. You could not go up there.
Well, actually, I think we could have gone to the top of the Arc. We just chose not to.
Okay.
But it was interesting to be there and on the Champs-Élysées.
Sure.
That's like saying Glenstone Avenue, the Champs-Élysées. Which is this major shopping street that goes through the middle of Paris.
Exactly.
And at the end of it is the Arc de Triomphe. And that was the first thing we saw when we got there, actually, was the Arc de Triomphe, and went down the Champs-Élysées to it. So it was wonderful. Yeah. But I'm glad to be home because Rogersville is where my heart beats best. And
there you go.
I can only take so much Europe, and it's time to come to the house. So I'm glad we got to come back.
Well, Barry, thanks for all the chat about your wonderful trip to Paris and to Rome. Now that Barry is stateside, hey, let me get you that phone number for Barry at the Wealth Care Corporation, all around the wonderful Ozarks, 417-200-3500, 417-200-3500. So Barry is catching us up on his trip, and we'll get down to business right after this break and talk about one of our main topics of the day right after this.
Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his Retirement Toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his Retirement Income Planning Booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours Retire Successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC.
Are you worried about where your money will go in retirement? No need to worry. Barry Watts is here to help you plan for your retirement future. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to set up a meeting with Barry Watts to see what he can do for you. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 today.
Alrighty, this is Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Watts on Wealth, the radio show, as Barry is back with us and back with you. We want to begin our program and talk about what's important to you and, whether you would have more money to travel later on or what does your retirement look like. Want to start the show, Barry, with some stats from the AARP. I like their magazine, by the way, on the state of caregiving in this country. And AARP has found that more than 2/3 of the voters, they say they surveyed voters, I guess that's a category that they would hit on with the education process and what they're going through financially. 2 out of the 3 voters are worried they won't have enough money to afford the care they need. 2/3 are concerned they won't be able to live independently. 62% are very worried about being a burden on their family with care, while about 60%, about 56% exactly, worry they won't have a family member to care for them as they get older. So is that lining up with the numbers you see?
Well, I'm sorry to go here so quickly, Ralph, but I just got to say this. If 2/3 of voters are concerned about economic things, then those 2/3 of the voters need to pull their head out and vote correctly and not, you know what correctly means. Hold your nose and pull the lever for Donald. Is what I'm going to say to you, because we certainly have some economic concerns that need to be addressed in our country. And yes, Ralph, the numbers you quoted, 2/3 being concerned about not having enough money, that's absolutely consistent with our data. Over the years, we've surveyed more than 1,000 families coming through the classes that we teach. And the number one concern is running out of money. The number 2 concern is usually taxes, 2 kinds of taxes, both the tax on Social Security and then a penalty tax on Medicare. And there is rumbling out there that maybe one of Trump's platform positions could be to erase the tax on Social Security. By the way, Social Security did not used to be taxable until a Republican president signed legislation and made it so. And a Republican president who we all tend to love, Ronald Reagan, was the one who signed that legislation. So it would be interesting for them to repeal that. It'd be hard for them to do because the government's needing more money, not less. But I think that'd be a great place to start. And I certainly think it's a good platform piece for Trump to be running on, and particularly if he intends to deliver on it. The third big thing that we see people concerned about, Ralph, is just being a burden to their family. People want to have enough money accumulated so they can take care of themselves without being a physical burden to their family. And certainly when you get into a long-term care situation, it is burdensome, even if you have someone else doing the heavy lifting.
I know you can't get into specifics and share any information from your clients. Just generally, though, Barry, what are people around the Ozarks saying about helping take care of loved ones now? I would throw in that sandwich generation. You've got your mom and dad to help take care of while you're still working, and also help and take care of those teenage and adult children. You got them above you and below you. But clients who are worried about helping take care of their loved ones, are they worried about needing a caregiver for themselves later on in life? Like, what situation am I going to be in, and how are we going to pay for that?
Well, the people that we deal with are mostly in that age bracket where I'd say about half of them, their parents have gone on and are no longer here, but maybe up to half of them, their parents are still living. And of course, they're very senior. And so a lot of the folks we talk with are feeling guilty. And the reason they feel guilty is because they do feel burdened by mom and dad, and they feel guilty that it's a burden. And so, it's just one of those, I want to take care of mom, dad. I love mom and dad. I want to be there for them and help them, but it's driving me nuts. And physically, I just can't do it. And I'm exhausted. And so they feel bad for feeling bad is kind of what it is. And so what I say to them is, you just kind of have to shake that off. Don't feel guilty about it. It's okay to feel burdened. You are burdened. And feeling guilty about it just adds to that. So it's okay to acknowledge that you're burdened and then free yourself up mentally to go ahead and do what you need to do to take care of your parents. So that's a real big issue, is just feeling guilty for feeling burdened. And then the next big thing is, yes, will there be enough? And oh my goodness, how am I going to take care of this for myself when the time comes? In fact, we have a client that we just saw earlier this week, I'm thinking of, who his mother just died within the past 3 months and was in long-term care. And that's one of the issues for them is, will there be enough to take care of their long-term care needs? So that's the big question, is how you're going to address long-term care. And fortunately, Ralph, we've got some tools that are very effective at doing that people, for the most part, don't know about and are not using and think they can't access until we introduce them to them. And then they say, oh, my goodness, didn't know I could do this. Let's go. Let's do this. And it makes a great difference for most of our clients.
So how do they put that in their toolbox, Barry? How do they get the tools? Just give you a call or some other way?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to talk, and I have to know what your needs are. And you can't just call and say, hey, I want to talk just about that, because it all builds on itself. It all builds on, when are you going to retire? And do you have enough to retire? And do you have enough money to live out in retirement, or what you're going to need? And are you overpaying your taxes or not? And can we reduce the amount that you're paying in taxes? And do you have your portfolio allocated in such a way to protect your principal, so that a bad market doesn't take money away from you? And then we get into the long-term care planning. So each of these builds on the next. And if you try to just step into the middle, it doesn't really work. You can't ice the cake when you haven't mixed the flour and the water and the milk and the eggs yet. So you have to start at the basic, gathering all of those ingredients, putting them there, putting them in the bowl, mixing them up properly, baking. We'll get to the icing, is what I'm trying to say. So that's how you start with it. And Ralph, we're happy to help people do that. We've got a process called the 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence. And that's what people who come to the Wealth Care Corporation go through, is the 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence. And anybody who's interested in knowing more about that can read about it in my book, or they can just give us a call and actually schedule and come in to see us. We're happy to do that for them and sit with them for an hour or so, just talk about their situation and see if we are able to help them. So all they need to do is give us a call.
Let me give you the deets on that. That's short for details. Isn't that cool? Give you the deets on the 411. Yeah.
For a guy who's 70, you're really hip hop and happening there.
I've always been hip, if nothing else, the whole time.
Oh, you have, haven't you?
I had to throw that in there. Yeah. So here's what you do, folks. You can text the word visit or call over the weekend, or text over the weekend, call during the week. 417-200-3500. I want to talk to Barry Watts about what I heard him and Ralph talking about on the radio. 417-200-3500. Barry, we can also text the word book to that same number, book, to 417-200-3500, and get that new Watts on Wealth printed copy.
That's correct. It's available, and I'll sign it, and we'll mail it out to you. If you'll text us today, we'll mail it out to you on Monday. You'll probably have it in your hands by Wednesday.
Yeah. I have the hybrid. I have your book on Kindle, and I also have the printed copy. The Kindle that lights up, that's what I read at 2 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, Barry. I have the Kindle for Watts on Wealth and read at night, or maybe just flip through the pages if you just are still a big paper page-turning book reader. I've got it both ways, and you can get it both ways too.
Well, Ralph, we love people like you who buy the book twice, so thanks.
Yeah. I think you ought to be paid for writing that book, so I bought the book too. I bought it both ways.
I think to complete your collection, the hardback version would be excellent as well.
Indeed. Now, I hear it is in Chapter 10, page 123 of your book. You discuss some of the challenges that people have when they're providing care for that loved one while still trying to work and save for the future.
Well, that is the topic that we address in Chapter 10, page 123 of Watts on Wealth, the book, as opposed to Watts on Wealth, the radio show, or Watts on Wealth, the TV show. And the big deal, Ralph, is that, when you're making a pizza, like they do down at Pizza House on Commercial Street, when you're making a pizza, you can only spread the dough so thin, and you can't spread it thin beyond that. There's only so much money to go around, and that's the problem that people face when they're dealing with long-term care costs. The average retired couple reaching age 65 are going to spend about $350,000 of their money on health care costs alone. And that's just the average. If you're fortunate, you'll be at less than that. But if you're unfortunate, you could be twice that amount. How much money do you have saved up, and how much of it will be eaten up by health care costs? And so that's one of the things that we address in Chapter 10 of the book. We talk about how to spread the dough thinner than you thought you could and cover all of these obligations. One of the big things that people face, Ralph, is this sandwich generation you just mentioned. In fact, my 2 longest-serving staff members are in the sandwich at this moment. They are raising their grandchildren, and they are caring for their parents. In fact, at this very hour, my assistant Nola is not here. She's actually somewhere between here and Maine because she had to take her mama back home to Maine to visit the doctor. And they were driving to Maine or flying to Maine and then driving back. I'm not exactly sure why. Sometimes you only want so much information. But they're right there in that. So we understand it because it's where our people live. Now, my children are up and doing well, so I'm not sandwiched on that side. I'm not really sandwiched on the top either because my mom and dad are still doing well. But they're slowing down rapidly. They are entering that no-go phase before very much longer. And so we're having to provide an increasing amount of care for them and anticipating having to do that. And that will be stressful. I think, Ralph, it's stressful on people individually. It then is stressful on their marriage. And that's even before the financial stress comes in. So these are all things that we want people to plan for and fix because for the most part, you don't have to go through that stress if you know how to avoid it. And Chapter 10, page 123 of What's on Wealth is one of the places to begin learning how you can solve that particular problem.
Yes, that would be your guidebook on that. Barry, it seems like, Mom and Dad are great. They're in their 80s, and my kids are very healthy and doing great. Would you agree with me when our parents and children are generally in good health, we put that health and paying for long-term care issue on the back burner when we ought to be taking care of it now? Would you agree with me on that?
Nobody wants to buy fire insurance till their house is on fire.
There you go. Right. Think of that, folks. Yeah.
And that's the whole point. No, you have to plan for this stuff before you need it. And right now, while you're healthy and you can do it without mental stress, when you can just think about the numbers in an unpassionate way, an impassionate way. Is that the right way to say that? Anyway, you can think about it without freaking out.
Yes, we get it.
That's the time to be thinking about those things. And that time is probably now. And if you want to talk about that, then you ought to call us at the Wealth Care Corporation and let us help you start going through the 6 steps to retirement confidence, one of which is dealing with your long-term care needs.
Mm-hmm. And repeating that number, you can get the book or just set up your complimentary conference with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation on Battlefield Road in beautiful Springfield, Missouri, all around the 417 area code. Barry's number, text it today. I wouldn't wait. I'd go even before you go to church today. 200-3500, 417-200-3500, and text the word book. And either way, it's one day, right, Barry? You're going to respond right away and either get them the signed copy of the book, set up that appointment, right?
Either way, we can do both of those things, yes.
All right. Well, you were mentioning Nola is her name, your employee Nola?
That's right. She's been with me 26 years.
26 of your 31 years, just about the whole time.
And her husband works for us as well. He's been here 25 years. So
that is wonderful.
2 of the foundation stones in our practice.
And, I'm sure they're getting great financial wisdom from you. They've planned for their future. But I want to, when we come back from our little halftime break here, I'll mention Nola as we get into the issue of most of our caregivers are women, especially for our women. If you're a female listening to the show right now, good for you. And we'll have some advice specifically targeted for you as What's on Wealth returns right after this quick check of the news. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Taxes. Can't live with them, can't live without them. But if you're looking for someone to help you pay as little taxes in retirement as possible, just give Barry Watts a call at the Wealth Care Corporation at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500 to see what Barry Watts can do for you. Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his retirement toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Welcome back into the second half of this weekend's Watts on Wealth, along with the incredible J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. I'm your radio host, and by the way, former KSPR news anchor Ralph Hipp. That was long ago and far away when I was at KSPR, and I think Barry and I were actually on KSPR doing our Watts on Wealth show, so it all kind of came back full circle, Barry. Well, that old Ralph Hip, I don't know if I remember him, but he was on KSPR with Barry, and we said a lot of good stuff on the TV show. But back to more of the radio show, and mentioning NOLA and all those women, as AARP says, most of our caregivers in this country, no surprise, they are women. We know that women generally tend to outlive the men by maybe 5 years or more. So women as caregivers, Barry, how does that factor into the planning conversation?
Well, it's a really important part of the conversation. In fact, just this week I read an article, and I wish we could do a whole show just around this article. It talks about longer lives and lower pay, why saving for retirement is harder for women. And one of the statistics quoted in this article is that 36% of retired women say that they took time off of work during their working years to provide care to a family member, while only 13% of men did that. So how big is this issue of women outliving men and being the bigger caregivers? It's huge. It's huge. And so it's something that we have to deal with all the time. And I'll tell you, when we're building plans to deal with long-term care, we like to build plans that address both the husband's need for long-term care and the wife's need for long-term care. But if in building those plans, we don't feel like we have enough money to adequately fund both of those, the one that we choose to fund when we can is we choose to fund the wife. And here's why. The wife is going to be here most likely for the husband, because wives tend to outlive men. Women outlive men by about 7 years. So the wife is going to probably be there for the husband, probably be providing care for the husband. And then the husband is going to be spending down the family assets for some of that care. And so who's going to take care of the wife when the husband is gone? That's why we kind of focus on the women and try to be sure we get the women taken care of. And then if we can take care of the husband too, well, then that's absolutely great. But we want to make sure that the wife doesn't lose her husband and wind up without any financial resources and no way to have care for herself. When it's all said and done, that's what we're trying to avoid when we do this kind of planning for our clients.
What are some of the strategies helping us navigate some of those unknowns, Barry? How long we will live in retirement, or the retirement for us could go 20, 25, or 30 years, or how long we might need the long-term care part of that piece.
Well, we don't know the answer to those questions, Ralph. I mean, you have to plan on living to be old. You say, well, I don't want to plan to be old. Yeah, I understand you don't want to, but you don't get to choose. So plan on living to be old. How old? At least 100 years old. You say, now, Barry, there's no way I'm going to live to be 100. I get it. Don't argue with me. I get it. The point that I'm trying to make is you don't want to just have enough money to get you to 82 and then you live to be 92. Because those last 10 years, when you're saying, would you like fries with that? Those last 10 years are going to be the hardest 10 years of your life if you don't have financial resources to continue supporting you all the way to the end. So, to make it simple, we just say everybody's going to live to be 100. And then if you're fortunate and you die in your sleep at 92, guess what? There's some money left over to go to your spouse or to your kids or whoever you want it to go to. And that's not such a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with dying with a little money left, but there can be something very wrong with your money dying and then you're living with no money left. Now, if you go into long-term care, how long will you spend there? I don't know. The average male spends about 3 years in long-term care. The average female spends about 5 years in long-term care. How much does long-term care cost? Well, in 417 land, they say that the average cost is about $7,000 a month. So that's $84,000 a year. I'm going to tell you that my grandmother's been gone now 6 years. And when we had her over at Elfindale, she was spending $10,000 a month then. So I think the kind of care that you're probably going to want is probably going to cost $10,000 and up, if I were guessing. So you just think about $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 a year. For a man, 3 years of that is $360,000. And for a woman, that's 120 times 5. That's $600,000 that might be spent on long-term care costs. It's a pretty big bill. You've got to have a plan for how you're going to pay for it.
Barry, I would go back to your pizza example. If you're living to be, planning on having the retirement income last till you're 82 and you live till 92, that pizza sauce ain't going to go to the edge of the pizza. There's going to be some parts that aren't covered, and you've got to spread the wealth and spread that pizza sauce, if you think of it that way, and make sure that everything is covered, long-term health care or not. Well, if we're generally even healthy, Barry, millions of us, we still worry, we fear running out of money in retirement after we meet and talk with you at the Wealth Care Corporation. What's your style? How do you help us feel better about our retirement years and living longer?
Well, Ralph, my job's not to pump sunshine up your skirt. I mean, so while I'm a pretty optimistic guy and I love people and enjoy talking with them and helping them, I don't think sunshine on a rainy day is helpful unless it truly is sunshine, unless we really did find a way to quench the rainy day. So the first thing we've got to figure out is, do you have enough money to be able to retire and stay retired? We call that the retirement income plan. Income to age 100. It's the first of the 6 steps to retirement confidence. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and say, okay, how much does it cost you to live every day? And I'm astonished at the number of people who retire without knowing this. I'm going to tell you it's 80% plus. People don't know really what it costs per month to live. How much is it going to cost you every month? And does that include Christmas presents for the grandkids? Does it include travel if you're going to travel? Does it include replacing a car every 10 years or so when you need to? Does it include $5,000 worth of hearing aids when you need them and $10,000 worth of dental expenses? You know, what is your number? When we get the number figured out, we call it the sitting on the porch number, because that's if you wanted to quit work and just sit on the porch. And I know that you probably want to do more than that, but if all you wanted to do was just sit on the porch, how much would it take every month? So we got to know that number, Ralph. And then from that number, we say, okay, how much do you have in Social Security? How much do you have coming in pensions? Do you own a rent house? How much money do you have coming in from the rent house or the farm that you're renting or something like that? And when we subtract that all out, then what we come up with is the number that's left that has to come out of your investments. And the question then becomes, if you take that money out of your investments every month going forward, do you have enough money to last till you're 100, or are you going to run short? And if you're going to run short, there's no better time to know it than right now. Now, what happens if you run short? Can you fix it? And the answer is maybe. Oftentimes we can fix it. One of the ways we fix it is by being darn sure that you don't overpay your taxes. Because a lot of retirees pay more in tax than they have to because they didn't know they had an option. They didn't know that there was a better way they could fix it, and they're not getting advice. In fact, I just had a phone call earlier this week from a lady who had spent her career working in the United States Postal Service. And her complaint to me verbatim, and she had, by the way, heard you and me talking about this on TV, Ralph, but she said, I've always asked my accountant about this, and he really couldn't help me with it. And I asked my financial people about it, and they wouldn't help me with it either. I don't know how much money I can take and whether the amount I'm taking is right, and am I going to run out? I said, ma'am, you have called the right place, because that's what we do, is we help you be sure you've got income to age 100. And aren't going to run out. And if you are going to run out, we develop some strategies to protect you against that, to fix the problem, to stretch the pizza dough, make it go a little bit further, as far out toward age 100 as we can. Ralph, it's the most important thing we do for people, and it's a great privilege to be able to show them that they can make it and to see the weight lift off of their shoulders. If you can imagine having that burden lifted off your shoulders today, that's what we want to do for you at the Wealth Care Corporation.
That is what they do at the Wealth Care Corporation, 417-200-3500, right here in Springfield, 417-200-3500. So a really good financial advisor, hint, 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 Barry Watts, and planner, can help you reach those retirement goals. A bad one can really hold you back, as you heard in his story. You might say the wrong financial advice is worse than just going it alone. Do you think that's fair to say, Barry?
Well, there's no doubt. And we see it happen all the time. It's amazing. The people who are branding themselves as financial advisors, who are really mutual fund or annuity salespeople. And I think you have to watch that. You have to look for those kinds of people. You have to examine their credentials. What are they qualified to do? And you have to know how to ask them questions to ferret out whether or not they really can help you. Because, one set of advice doesn't fit every situation. And there are people in town, in both Springfield, Joplin, Branson, all over 417 land, who call themselves financial advisors, but really they're annuity salespeople. And whatever your problem is, the answer is the annuity that they have to sell. And while annuities are not a bad thing, and we use them some in our practice, you have to realize that that's only a piece of the puzzle, and it is a retirement puzzle. In fact, our book, Watts on Wealth, the front cover of it has puzzle pieces, and there's one puzzle piece that's being put into place, and it's labeled on it confidence. And there's a guy standing on the front of it. We should have put my picture on the front of it, but there's a guy on the front of it who's dropping that final puzzle piece into place, the confidence piece that comes from having a plan that helps you know how much money you should have in each of the various places. A lady who called me this week had retired with $500,000 in her retirement account, and she put all of it into an annuity yielding 4%. Well, now inflation's 3%, so there goes 3/4 of her earnings. And by the way, she's going to have to pay tax on that money. Taxes are about a third. A third of 4% is a little over 1%. So by the time she gives 1% to taxes and 3% to inflation, she has lost everything that she had to gain. She didn't have a plan. She ran into a guy who, by the way, in this case, worked at the bank, and he was selling annuities. And she bought one because she wanted to be, quote, protected. But she didn't get good planning done. So we see this all the time. We hate it. If you'd like our help, just call us at the Wealth Care Corporation and we'll get right on it.
All right. You'll love the way Barry helps you out, so give him a call, get that conversation going for the Wealth Care Corporation, and have their wisdom working on your behalf. 417-200-3500. I just love saying your phone number, Barry. I just feel better when I say it. And I hope that number's getting out to our friends who'll call you back and return the favor.
We could get some of those soundtracks that have the phones ringing, like when you call Jerry's Kids and they're doing the Labor Day telethon.
I did a lot of those. Yeah,
that would be funny to run that in the background. Have the phone start ringing when Ralph's giving out the number, but nobody's there to answer it. So right now you just need to text us, but you can also call and leave a voice message, and we'll call you back on Monday morning.
That's great. Yeah, I did many of those telethons, and that's that immediate gratification, Barry, which I hope you get once in a while, when you come in Monday morning and hear the phone ring. But we'd give out that number for Muscular Dystrophy Association, and then the people just start calling crazy, like they're listening to us. They're responding to what we're asking and telling them about. So we hope you'll take advantage of the wisdom of Barry Watts and do that for you and your family. Well, so we talked about on the dark side, you don't want to do a lot of this yourself. And you sure don't want to have a bad financial planner. So what a good one can do. We're going to talk more about if you're a financial planner, if you're not with Barry, you have one that's just not right for you. We'll take a break and talk more about that with Barry in just a moment.
Having trouble planning your retirement? Planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his retirement toolkit. In it, you'll find a copy of his retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your toolkit, text KIT, that's K-I-T, to 417-200-3500. That's KIT, K-I-T, to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC.
Are you worried about where your money will go in retirement? No need to worry. Barry Watts is here to help you plan for your retirement future. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to set up a meeting with Barry Watts to see what he can do for you. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 today.
Welcome back in, and along with J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation, it's Watts on Wealth, the radio show. After the Olympics, Barry and I will be back on KY3, so watch for the TV show. It is fantastic, folks. I got to admit, it's just a great TV show and the kind of advice we share on KY3. But let's get back to the radio show. We're talking about if you have a financial planner, how are they working or not working for you? So how can people around the Ozarks, Barry, tell if their financial planner it's just not right for me. It's not a good fit even right from the start. We have about 5 ways that this may not be working for them.
I'm reminded, Ralph, of a client that we saw this week, actually. They've been with us only about 3 months. And when they came in to see us the first time, and we were talking about the things they needed to do and the advice they'd gotten from their previous advisor and how it had all worked, and they liked their previous advisor. He was a good guy and so forth. And so we're just talking about how it all fit. And one of the things that the husband said to me is he said, I just feel like maybe we've kind of outgrown him, that he's not where we need to be. And that is so true so often. You see, there are accumulation advisors, the kind of people who help you build money, accumulate money, grow money. But when you then start spending money, that's a whole different ball of wax and requires a whole different set of skills to provide retirement income to clients. So those are called retirement income advisors. And that's really what we do, is we do retirement income advice, how to take the money that you've accumulated and turn it into retirement income. So I think you just ought to sit back and ask yourself, have I outgrown my advisor? Do they provide the kind of counsel that I'm looking for? Or here's something else you should consider. Are they just really good at patting me on the hand, handing me golf balls and a bottle of wine, and taking me to dinner and buying me a steak and saying, there, it'll be okay, and we'll see you again next year? We don't do that kind of stuff for our clients. I mean, we occasionally have a big event, like the baseball game is a big event for us. But what we're trying to do is get answers to the questions so that you can take a big breath and go, it's all good now. And that's what we do at the Wealth Care Corporation.
Sure do. That confidence, if you're going to be around 20, 25, or 30 years and planning that retirement and having that confidence and that sigh of relief, you're going to love it, and get it started with Barry Watts. Let's get Barry working for you. And text visit today, this Sunday, text visit to 417-200-3500, or call them first thing in the morning and get that conference lined up. Barry, when we record our program, and I also love to listen to our program again, and I've listened to some other money people, generally they say one of their big frustrations about the industry is the perception of financial planning and meeting with an advisor, of how many people think, well, they're trying to sell me something. They're trying to sell me an investment product, instead of the big holistic picture of, no, we're trying to have you envision your retirement the way you want it to be for 10 or 20 or 30 years and help you get there, and not as much in taxes, and making sure you can pay for health care. We want to line up the ducks for you. We're not trying to necessarily sell you a product. We're trying to plan for your future with what you're saving. And do you feel that's also a misconception many people have about financial planners?
Well, no, I don't think it's a misconception. I think most people are right, because I think a lot of advisors have got the product. They've already got the product that they're ready to whip out and whip on you before they even sit down and talk with you.
Which they say, I don't want to go meet with this person. I don't want to be sold something right now. Yeah.
And so here's what we tell people: put your checkbook away, put it back in your pocket. I don't want to talk about your checkbook. What I want to do is understand you. I want to understand what you are trying to accomplish. I want to know what your hopes and dreams are. I want to know what your fears are. I want to know what kind of financial strength you have around those hopes and dreams to help you accomplish them, and what kind of financial strength you have to allay those fears and push back against them. So I think you need to look for an advisor who focuses on that sort of an approach. Now, there's a point in time where you get to talking about, well, this type of product does this, that type of product does that. This might fit. But Ralph, that comes late in the process. I'm going to tell you that that's not the first thing we talk about. In fact, some people, they want to talk about that first. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. They have actually been programmed to be buyers of financial products. No, stop, put it away. I had a guy with $4 million in Florida just this past week. I was on a Zoom call with him, and we were talking with him about his $4 million, and he had never considered a lot of the things that we consider. First of all, he had never considered, did he have enough money to make it to age 100? And he does if his wife doesn't go into long-term care. But if she goes into long-term care, he's not going to have enough. Nobody had ever shown him that. No one had ever done any tax planning for him. He didn't have any strategy to reduce the taxes he was going to pay in retirement. As a result, he's paying full tax on Social Security. He's paying penalties on Medicare because, and this guy, by the way, has a PhD. He's a smart dude. Okay. He knows a lot of stuff, and he's fun to talk to. But this is not his specialty, and nobody had ever brought these things to his attention. Do they do healthcare planning is a question you ought to consider. Do they have a strategy for helping you strategize about your healthcare costs? And is estate planning a part of their practice? Or do they just say, well, you have to go talk to a lawyer? And we think talking to lawyers is a really good idea. And lawyers help with that process. But sometimes you have to have somebody who's not a lawyer to explain to you what the lawyer said and how it all fits together. And that's one of the things that we do in our practice. So I just want to say, if you've got an advisor who's listening to you and talking to you and who's really taking your concerns into account and answering your questions, you have a special thing there. And I'm guessing most people have somebody who's probably a really good salesperson who has a product to sell and they want to be sure you buy it. And if it's an annuity, one of the questions that you really should be asking is, well, if I do buy this annuity, how much commission do you get paid? And don't let them dance around that. Make them tell you, because those are pretty healthy commission products. And it's one of the reasons they're so popular, as you might guess.
Right.
And so nothing wrong with an annuity. Nothing wrong at all. There's a place for it. But it has to be a part of the bigger picture. It's an ingredient in the casserole that we're baking that is the retirement casserole.
I'm hungry, Barry. We were baking a cake a while ago, and now we're working on a casserole of financial planning, and we're in the kitchen for a little bit of this show today. But anyway, Barry says those red flag warning signs that your advisor may not be right for you, do they just focus on investments? Do they have a plan for how you're turning investments into money, into your income? Do they do tax planning and the strategies? Do they understand Social Security optimization on your benefits? Do they do some healthcare planning and estate planning? So if they're not doing the right things for you, I just think, from knowing Barry and talking with Barry friends every weekend on the radio, you're going to like the way that Barry talks. You're going to like the way that he thinks and working for you. And he just has that feel of how you are in the Ozarks and what would be good for you. You're going to love meeting with Barry. And if you go, I want to talk to Barry Watts. I heard you on the radio, saw you on TV. Once again, that number, call him right away. It's 417-200-3500, 200-3500. You want all these different accounts you have and all these investments and policies, all these papers you may have in the drawer and in the folders. You want all this to work seamlessly together, and it doesn't happen by accident. So Barry really urges and encourages you not to make any financial decisions without knowing the full impact of how all these pieces work together, and you don't want them working apart. So once again, as we leave you here on the show, think about it. 417-200-3500. You'll learn a lot more about the benefits of having that comprehensive retirement strategy from the WealthCare Corporation and how you can put all this in one place for your future. So call them this week or text them today, 417-200-3500, reaching out to Barry's team at Springfield's wonderful WealthCare Corporation. Wow. I got to give myself a pat on the back for that. That was pretty good.
That was a lot. Catch your breath.
That's pretty good. That's basically what we're doing here. Barry, we're wrapping up the show and love talking about the trip and love your expertise. And you've really guided us through some difficult topics there, and we sure appreciate it. Any final words today?
Well, it's just simply this. One of the things Kelly and I talked about when we were on the trip, we had the opportunity to just kind of kick back and talk about us. One of the things we talked about was our own retirement and when we're going to pull the trigger. By the way, I'll be turning 61 next week. In fact, a week from today. I'll turn 60
already. And I just remembered when you had your 60th.
So we were talking about retiring, and here's what we came up with. I'm planning to work all the way to age 70, and I'm building out a staff, a team of people, a team of young advisors who each week I'm coaching and helping to learn all these principles so that they can help our clients beyond that. And we want to be here for the long term because you and your family are going to be here for the long term, and we've got an obligation to build something that lasts and that helps you and helps your money to last. And we're excited about it. We love helping people, and that's why we get up and come to work every day instead of going home.
Now give yourself a pat on the back.
Boy, it feels so good.
Well said, Barry. Well said, buddy. Yeah. Friends, thanks for spending an hour with us. If you can, every Sunday morning right here. We love being with you and sharing what Barry knows. Give him a call during the weekend. For now, Barry, that's Watts on Wealth, and we'll see you again next Sunday, bud. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
All right, good to be with you.
And goodbye for now from Watts on Wealth.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for What's on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.